Burnley 0, Arsenal 5.
I think I should
Leave
this one to you, Clates. But 6-0 and 5-0 away in consecutive fixtures is some achievement.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's the element of you need to be aware who you're playing, but then I think what I said in one of the pods we did on Patreon last week was that Arsenal look in these games like they're not even getting out of gear 2 or 3, which is the most impressive. And even West Ham, that first half, I didn't think it was going to be a 4-0 game, and then it was bang, just ruthless, like, period of time. And even in this game, I know Arsenal went 1-0 up very early, 4th minute Odegaard. And
helps, doesn't it?
Pardon?
Helps. It
does help massively, and Arteta's spoken about this a lot this season, about game state and how Arsenal are typically facing a lot of low blocks, but I think it's because Arsenal haven't been scoring early enough. But in this game, ironically, once Arsenal went 1-0 up, I didn't actually think we played amazingly. I thought we controlled the ball, but I know there were a few chances, but I didn't think it was going to go and be a 5-0. And then Saka obviously got his penalty before half-time, and then it was cruising. But
compare this to the Palace game, because that we said afterwards, and obviously there's that's over the last sort of 5 games as well, which obviously also features beating Liverpool and Forest
away, yeah.
And even after Forest, it's quick how quickly the narrative changed. After Forest, you and I had a discussion on Patreon about the deep real block. Concern about Arsenal playing against these sort of opponents. And we have to remember the Palace game was Martinelli 2 goals late on.
Yeah, there was a set piece in there.
And it never felt like you obviously well deserved to beat Palace, but it never felt like a 5-0 game.
No, I agree.
Did this one?
Yeah, as it went on, like I said, I think it was once we got the second, I was thinking, okay, this could be 3 or 4 now. And I think the thing I want to speak about, like tactically, there's been some cute changes the last couple of games, because you're right, after Forest away, I spoke about concerns about Arsenal unlocking deep blocks, and what I've seen in West Ham and Burnley is, I think partly driven by Zinchenko's absence, Arsenal have kind of flipped the dynamics of who inverts. So Kiwior has been playing and kind of holding the width as more of a natural, traditional fullback. Ben White's been tucking in next to Rice. But some of the stuff I'm seeing...
It's not as extreme though, is it?
It's not.
No.
And this is the thing, like something that I've found really fascinating is the automatic movements, and how sometimes you'll see when Arsenal build, there's a 3-2 as we speak about a lot. And in this game, it was sometimes Rice and Odegaard as the 2. And when Odegaard is the trigger, when he drops in, White would then go out wide. And you'd see Saka drifting into kind of Odegaard's space and the half-space areas. And it was like those automatic movements were so impressive. And I think this is what internally they've looked at as the solution to the deep block problem. And I've always said, when Arsenal have space, I think they'll kill teams. And I think by doing this inversion and kind of the fluidity in the middle and the final third, I think that's what's causing confusion amongst teams and creating more space for Arsenal to play. And then there were periods where Odegaard would go into his traditional area in the right half space, Saka would keep the width, and White would tuck in next to Rice. So I think there's some really, really clever stuff going on. Trossard and Havertz are interchanging in areas that they occupy really nicely. Havertz was getting into really clever areas. When he got the ball, he didn't look as convincing, but his movement and what he's doing to create space for others is quite impressive at the minute. So yeah, I think Arsenal are really impressive at the minute. I'm as a fan myself really loving what I'm seeing, and you spoke about it on Friday. I think it's just a case of, in the context of a potential title challenge, win until you get to that City game and take it from there. But from an FPL perspective, yeah, I think it's just a case of keep them until 29 and then deal with it then.
Worryingly good, unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it. I mean, as well, it's not just 5 wins on the bounce. It's basically 16 points.
And I think it's the lack of...
Because of the goal difference swing. It's not an extra point.
Yeah, but also the lack of chances Arsenal are giving up as well. It's phenomenal. Like, teams aren't really getting a sniff.
What would be the biggest problem here? Like, which player, if you suddenly lost to an injury, like Liverpool have obviously been really unlucky this week. Rice, like say Saliba.
No, I think
or Odegaard.
I think because as a structure, Arsenal. I think last season Saliba was one of the key components, and not that he's not this season. I just think Rice is that real cog in the middle that knits it all together, and the way Arsenal are winning the ball back structurally as a team. They're suffocating teams. It's frightening. And I think he's a big part of that. You see a lot of teams, they'll try to break out. He's proactive, front-footed, wins it back aggressively. And I think he and Odegaard off the ball set the tone for the team. So I think he would be the injury that, if you ask, would be like the most problematic. But I think Arsenal in general have coped quite well with injuries this season. I think in different periods they've been without like Jesus, Tomiyasu, Partey, Timber, who would have probably been first teamers. So yeah, I think it's a case of you add in the likes of Jesus coming back, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Partey, Timber to the mix in a month, and suddenly it looks like, yeah, things are coming together nicely.
I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to think about it. I literally want you to answer the question as quickly as you can.
Yep.
Correct score against Newcastle?
2-0.
2
Arsenal.
2, obviously. Did you say 2-0 or 2-1?
2-0.
2-0?
Yep.
Okay. The reason they asked Clayton that question and asked you to answer it really quickly is because I know you're normally quite conservative, and I wondered if I might catch you out and you might go 4-0 or something like that.
The reason I'm conservative is Arsenal have Porto away midweek, and as well as Arsenal playing, I think that'll be tough. It's a tight-ish turnaround. So
but then after Newcastle, you don't play for 9 days.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's my gun to my head answer. What would you...
What I mean is, if you get in your strong position, nothing to hold back for. It's not like, in a weird way, it's not like, I know Porto's before, and it's away, and there's the travelling and all those things that come into play. It's worth saying it's an 8 o'clock kickoff on Saturday night against Newcastle. But it's, in a weird way, what I mean is, if you've got 2-0 up against Newcastle and you're looking at Porto away on Tuesday, control. There's nothing to hold back on.
No.
If you want to go and give them trouble. And they are conceding way too many big chances at the moment.
Yeah.
Newcastle. Would you consider Saka captaincy over Haaland this week?
I'd still go Haaland. Would I consider it? Yeah, but it'd probably just be my vice. I think.
If you wanted to add to Saka as a second offensive for Arsenal,
I wouldn't.
Go on.
I don't know if this is a fan and subjectivity bias thing. Odegaard's consistent, but I don't like him as an asset. Martinelli is effective.
It feels like it's coming for Odegaard, though.
It is, but I think it's more... I've got this real obsession with the defence right now, with seeing how little they're giving up. And I know I became a meme for the triple defence, but I think most people can see statistically what they're doing is so impressive. So I think I'd always prefer the kind of 2 Arsenal defence and Saka.
But when you win like this, and I know obviously Gabriel and Saliba hauled, if you will, at West Ham, but it was goals for each with no bonus. Yeah. And obviously if they're not involved, it's just going to be flat 6-pointers, whereas your likes of Odegaard have put in serious returns up.
Like I say, it's definitely a bias thing with me where, I don't know, there's... Odegaard...
Right. So different example then.
Yep.
And probably to find out if the answer is Odegaard, there will be people who are going, right, well, I need to replace Jota now. Is Odegaard's the one?
I can't talk you out of it, no.
What I mean is it shouldn't be Martinelli or Havertz or Trossard is playing false 9 at the moment, basically.
Yeah, Odegaard for me. I think if Jesus was confirmed out for a long period of time, I would be talking up Trossard as an option, but I can't guarantee the minutes. And Odegaard will be there more or less 90 minutes. The fluidity I spoke about tactically, what we're seeing now, it's creating so much space for him in what he does best, both like his kind of finishes when he arrives into the box late and his assists potential as well. So, yeah.
Do you think Kivior will hold on to this spot? You begin to feel a little settled with him for the first time, maybe.
I think so. But then, I do. But then, would I be surprised if Tomiyasu comes in?
It's probably opponent dependent as well.
That's exactly it. Yeah, but for this week so far, I think it would stay the same both against Porto and Newcastle.
But avoidable, really, if you're looking longer term. Okay, fine. For just Burnley, a reminder as well for Raya owners, which I think is part why you moved off.
Yep.
Obviously, won't be available for the Brentford game. That's not till game week 28. But if you're on that, something obviously just to be aware of.
Just quickly on Burnley before we move on. It's concerning for them.
Like, proper bad or
really bad? Yeah, I think it's always these catch-22 things. Like, did Arsenal play well or were Burnley bad? And I think the reality is it was somewhere in the middle of both. But really concerning for them. I thought Fofana up front gave Gabriel a good challenge, but other than that, nothing to write home about. And obviously hope Aaron Ramsey's okay. Like, that didn't look great. He went off on a stretcher.
Another one, unfortunately, I did say it about Boubacar Kamara last week. I'm going to say it, unfortunately, about a former Villa player, Aaron Ramsey. Now, that's probably ACL as well, I think, judging by the movement of his leg and stuff. And he's obviously needed gas to help him out and stuff as well. Charlie Taylor back off the bench. There are people kind of be relying on that this week. You laugh.
I need a reminder on who they've got.
It's Palace away, though. And actually, the 4 fixtures building towards 29, which they play in, Palace away, Bournemouth at home, West Ham away, Brentford at home, is not terrible. I mean, admittedly, the 2 home games in that run, you're going to face Solanke and Toney, respectively. So, I mean, your fancy of clean sheets is not great. You're not going to go and invest here, are you?
I personally wouldn't. I've not seen anything that makes me want to.
Taylor, I would describe as probably 50-50 whether he'd start at Palace at the weekend, but you probably will at least get minutes. So if you're at that stage and you're short of players, it's probably not worth being in. And Palace, if they don't have Eze back, which we think probably won't be the case, then it's obviously one of the weakest attacks at the moment. So I think you probably play it this week. And you probably are holding through as a body if you're moving towards game week 29. But I think you've seen again at the weekend, don't expect anything. They're gone, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. Moving it on. Any more? Did you want to cover on that?
No, I don't think there's any point saying much more on Burnley, unfortunately.
All good.